What's up, everybody? I am Brett L. Pape. That's Coach Bruce, and this is the Coach Approach. How you doing, brother? Big weekend. You had your second weekend of a wedding. I went and tried to hunt. Little naive to think that I would be the only one in the mountains on opening day on a Southern California hunt. It ended up being like Black Friday at Target at 6 o'clock in the morning. Doors open up, and all of a sudden, every inch of the mountaintop is filled with people that are much better shape and a lot faster getting up the hill. So I ended up, instead of hunting, I ended up watching people hunt. So it was a hell of an experience. How was the wedding, Coach?
Wedding was fantastic. It's the mother of the bride is an old high school friend of ours, best friends with my wife. So I had an absolute blast. Ran into a bunch of guys I went to college with or high school with that I hadn't seen since, and so it was a lot of fun, man. A lot of reminiscing, a lot of old stories, a lot of things that I had forgotten about, and so did they. So it was a good time, man.
That's awesome. That's awesome. So because of the traveling that we both did, we got a late jump and watching games Sunday, but we're all caught up. So let's get caught up on this week's news and injuries to kick off the show. Justin Fields, dislocated thumb, expected to miss time. Really unfortunate time. I mean, this is the year, especially with them looking like they're going to get great draft capital. This is the year where he really had to, in a lot of people's eyes, convince people that he is their quarterback for the future. He is their franchise quarterback. And now, unfortunately, he's going to miss some time. Thoughts on what this means, Coach?
Yeah, a lot of talk about Caleb Williams going to Chicago and that whole situation, and so this was really whether he was going to stay in Chicago or he's going to have to move on. It was an audition for Justin Fields to prove that he could be the QB1 in Chicago for the future, and back-to-back strong performances. I get it, it was the Broncos and the Commanders, but throws for 617 yards and 8 touchdowns combined in those two games, and now he's out. So, hey, Tyson Badgett now gets an opportunity out of the great Shepherd University Division II program. Goes 10 of 14 for 83 yards and a rushing touchdown last week against Minnesota Vikings. He'll now face Max Crosby and the Raiders, who have 5 interceptions on the season. They get pressure on the quarterback. And, Nathan Peterman, if you remember him, is now your QB2 there in Chicago. A little scary, but, this is a life we're in. And at this point, you're tanking for Caleb. I wasn't going to say tanking for Tua, whatever the rhyme is for Caleb, but
Right. Yeah.
we'll see what happens with that whole Caleb Williams. And, of course, you get Marvin Harrison there at number 2. That's a pretty good situation for Chicago.
That would be something that they wouldn't expected to go down that road.
Better get rid of Matt Eberflus if you're going to do that, though.
Yeah, no, there's going to be more changes for sure. Every time anyone mentions Nathan Peterman, I can't help it. I can't not think of the character on Seinfeld. You remember Peterman? All right, let's move on. Sorry, but hey, let's get to our first question. We talked about this before the show. Our focus is always on you guys, and we'll do our best to help you. Here we go. David Montgomery also have Gibbs for Devontae Adams and Stevenson. First thought from me without looking at any of the numbers is we've already got injury number 1 for Montgomery. We know he's going to be out for a couple of weeks. I would hope that maybe the New England offense is going to improve. I know Stevenson hasn't done much. So my point is, yes, I would make that deal.
You want Devontae Adams or Ramondre Stevenson side?
I do, only because
me too.
I mean, we're already 6 weeks in.
Yep.
Running back position is not a position where staying healthy is the easiest thing to do. He's on injury 1. We know he's going to miss 2 to 3 games, if not more. So with that being said, I think it's an easy accept. I don't even care if it's redraft or dynasty. If it's dynasty, I'm taking Adams and Stevenson even more so. But nevertheless, we were in agreement with that, right, Coach?
We are, yeah. What's surprising is how much Devontae Adams, after a couple of tough games, and now with Brian Hoyer and starting in Vegas, how much his stock has dropped. 6 weeks ago, 3 weeks ago, you never thought about Devontae Adams in a 2-for-1 trade. But here we are.
Right. No, dynasty, yeah, I'm still doing it. I feel like if we can get a better quarterback situation, or if Devontae Adams gets, I still think we got 2 to 3 good years left in the man. And then Stevenson, we know his talent. He's only 25. I'm making that deal. All right, hey, let's move on to the next injury. Trevor Lawrence day to day with knee injury. limited practice Wednesday. They play tomorrow. I wouldn't feel great if I had him, but the good news is that this is not something that you have to make a decision real early in the morning because it's a night game. So your thoughts with him or without him?
Well, it looks like he's going to try to play. He's been, wearing the knee brace in practice. It's not a great matchup, whether he's playing or not, for Jacksonville, going against the Saints defense. We'll get into that as we get into Thursday night football. But hopefully Trevor Lawrence can go. At the same time, I'm not going to push it if I don't have to with Trevor Lawrence.
I really like the way they're playing and what they're able to do this year. They're 4-2. They're able to win in different ways. Yeah. A lot of people thought that this was going to be an offense that was going to be the team leader, so to speak. They have struggled a little bit on offense. It's that defense. That defense has looked pretty damn good. They're a team that I'm excited to see. But like you said, the Saints are pretty damn good on defense themselves. Unfortunately, their offense is atrocious right now. All right, let's move on to Christian McCaffrey, oblique injury. They didn't practice today because they play Monday. So this is like a Tuesday for them. With that being said, a little bit of report today that he might be able to play. So thoughts, and more importantly, are you a Jordan Mason guy or an Elijah Mitchell guy?
Yeah, let's get into CMC first. I'll tell you, he leads the NFL in rushing with 553 yards and 9 total touchdowns. Accounts for 32% of the 49ers yards from scrimmage, which is pretty impressive. And he's second in receptions on the team with 23 for 177. So it's a huge loss if you lose him coming off the loss last week. But if he can't go, look, it's Jordan Mason or Elijah Mitchell. I'm going to trust that Jordan Mason is the guy. I know you're big on Jordan Mason as a prospect coming out. He outsnapped Elijah Mitchell 15-7. Last week, he had 5 carries for 27 yards and got a touchdown, while Elijah Mitchell was only 2 carries for -3 yards. So if CMC is out, Jordan Mason to me is the back you want to roster or the back you want to put in your lineup in this game.
I totally agree. I mean, and it's going to be interesting. We don't know what the situation is going to be, but when you have the opportunity to plug one of those two in when CMC is out, it's a great boost, especially on a week this week when you have so many buys. So either one of those guys, I would play either one of them in this week and just hope that it's Mitchell, if I have Mitchell, that his name is being called, or vice versa if it's Mason. Next injury, this one really hurts as far as production that you were able to get out of him, and that's David Montgomery. Rib injury, expected to miss time, did not practice today.
Yeah, so you really only have a small sample size, week 3, last time he missed. Jahmyr Gibbs at the time was healthy. He got 59% of the snap share, 57% of the rush share, and 50% of the route share. 17 carries, 80 yards, had 2 targets, 1 grab for 2. Craig Reynolds saw 30% of the snaps, but right now you've got Jahmyr Gibbs coming off his own injury. So if he goes this week, is he going to be limited? And is Craig Reynolds going to be the guy in early down situation, goal line situation? Or is Jahmyr Gibbs going to get that opportunity? Zonovan Knight now is done for the year. He was a guy that plays that third fiddle. And David Montgomery was out in week 3. But I think hopefully Jahmyr Gibbs is healthy and he's a full go this weekend.
Unfortunately, Gibbs today was a limited participant in practice.
Yeah, I saw that.
Hopefully, who knows? Who knows? It hurts as a Gibbs guy. I invested so much in him, and I know you did too. We'd sure like to just see what he can do with an opportunity with no David Montgomery. Moving on to another surprise guy, and that's Kyren Williams. Huge second half this week, but unfortunately he suffers an ankle injury in the second half, and he's going to be out some considerable time. When I say considerable, early on it looked like 2 to 3 weeks. Now it looks more like he's going to be out until the bye.
Yeah, hey, look, he's the RB7 over the last 3 games. He's total over 314 yards on the ground with 3 touchdowns on just 58 carries. So he's looked good, especially last week. Second half, you mentioned. First half, it seemed like they weren't going to do anything in the run game. They opened up the second half with, I think, 7, 8, 9 straight runs, and he really got it together. But then you got Ronnie Rivers out with the PCL. So looks like Zach Evans will be the guy. They did make some roster moves with Royce Freeman, brought him up the practice squad. You signed Myles Gaskin from the Vikings practice squad, and then you went out and grabbed Darrell Henderson, who played in that system for 4 years before being let go in the offseason. So we'll see what happens with him. I don't expect him necessarily to play a role this week. I think he'll be activated on the 53-man roster, but I think Darrell Henderson's another week away from really seeing any significant reps.
We'll get more into that backfield later on when we discuss risers and fallers. But let's move on to another injury. There's a lot of them this week, unfortunately. I mean, if you just look at the quarterbacks and the guys that are possibly not playing this week, we didn't talk about them all, and we won't. But Jimmy Garoppolo, Ryan Tannehill, there's a lot of guys that Daniel Jones we still don't know much about. But let's move on. Deebo Samuel, shoulder injury, considered day-to-day. I think it might be a little worse than that, though. Again, with no practice today, didn't get to see a status of what he was doing in practice, but he could be out this week.
Yeah, and the way they utilize Deebo in the screen game, and he's a guy that does a lot after the catch. He's a guy that's physical. Reminds me a lot of Anquan Bolden after the catch. He's a physical runner. He likes contact. Sometimes will initiate the contact. So you're taking away a little bit of Deebo's game. So I don't expect him to play, but if he does, I also wouldn't be surprised. I know as athletes, guys want to play. They don't want to sit out if they don't absolutely have to. But it's Brandon Ayuk and George Kittle are going to have to be the show this weekend if Deebo and CMC are both out.
Let's move on. Last thing as far as injuries go, and that's just a guy who got hurt after 4 plays. You saw everyone talked about it, but here we see Aaron Rodgers throwing prior to the Eagles game on the sidelines. Now, he's not making big hip rotations or he's not really pressing down on the foot, but just for him to be able to do that standing tall, holy smokes, Coach. Any chance you think he actually does come back this year?
Look, if Aaron Rodgers does come back, we all need to smoke whatever he's smoking, because that's to come back from an Achilles. And look, hey, medically, we are so far along than we were 10 years ago. You're seeing guys come back from what used to be career-ending injuries and be able to come back and be just as good a year or 2 years later. But to come back from an Achilles in the same season would be pretty impressive.
It would be really impressive. And you talk about the way technology or whatever, just how things are better, but it hasn't worked for some guys. I don't think Cam Akers is the same. It's James Robinson, who we'll get into actually right now. Green Bay Packers signed running back James Robinson to the practice squad. A lot of people are worried about it being more of an indictment with Jones, Aaron Jones, and his injury. I think this more has to do with A.J. Dillon not being able to really kind of do much of anything with the opportunities he's had.
No, I think you hit on a good point. If you look at the backfield, Aaron Jones with the hamstring we're hoping he can go this week, but we don't know yet. But A.J. Dillon, like, someone's got a lot of fire under his ass. Like, I get he's not the RB1. He's going to be the complementary piece to Aaron Jones, who owns that backfield. But now you bring somebody in to create some competition. James Robinson's coming off the Achilles in 2021, split last season between the Jaguars and Jets. Only had 425 yards on 110 carries with 3 touchdowns, while contributing just 11 grabs for 51 yards in the passing game. So not a whole lot there since what we saw his rookie season after being an undrafted free agent. He has struggled to find somewhere to play since then and coming off the torn Achilles, but now he's over a year and a half removed from that. So, look, it's always great to see a guy get an opportunity. It was a great story when he came out as a rookie and played as well as he did. But I think you're right. This is a depth piece, and more importantly, hopefully it's a piece that gets A.J. Dillon to get pissed off and do something.
I couldn't do it anymore. I've rostered A.J. Dillon in my home league for almost 2 years, and I pretty much had an opportunity to get what I think will be an early 3rd round pick, and I just did it. I mean, I feel like it was the right time to jump. Let's get on to a couple bit of news before we get into the Week 6 review. Cardinals designate quarterback Kyler Murray to return from PUP. All that talk at the beginning of the year about how Kyler Murray may sit out the entire year. They want to tank. Let's go out and, just try and do the best we can to get a quarterback for the future. And they're bringing Murray back. Thoughts, Coach?
Yeah, so I think the rule is he's got 21 days, so he can practice now before he's got to make a decision if they're going to play him or shut him down for the season. I think at this point, Kyler Murray probably feels like he wants to play, and he's going to go up. And the story is he walked up to the coach at practice and said, "Hey, I'm ready. I'm practicing." It wasn't like I'm asking you a question. Like, can I practice? It's, "Hey, I'm practicing today." And I think he's motivated and wants to get out there and wants to show something. Joshua Dobbs is not playing poorly. He's done pretty well considering the circumstances, but it'd be great for the NFL. It'd be great.
I don't think it's Dobbs is what he wants to get back in there for.
Oh, not at all.
I know, but I think he wants to more about, like you guys don't need to worry about going to go get Caleb Williams.
Yeah.
Just, I mean, hopefully the coaching situation, it seems like Gannon's getting those guys to play hard. And with that being said, if they can make things right with Murray, now they get to use that good draft capital next year on other positions. Hopefully that's what we're looking at. Last bit of news before we get into the week in review. Mecole Hardman heads back to Kansas City in a trade from the Jets. Hardman and a 2025 7th-round pick goes to Kansas City for a 6th-rounder in 25. Hardman did absolutely nothing while playing for the Jets. 1 reception and 6 yards for the season. Former 2nd-round pick out of Kansas City in 2019.
Yeah, it makes sense. I mean, you get yourself a speed guy that's familiar with the system, who's played with Patrick Mahomes, likes the offense. I think he felt like, hey, I'm going to go with the Jets where Aaron Rodgers is at and get an opportunity. And of course, that didn't pan out. But good for the Chiefs. They recognize there's a need there to get another speed guy. And, you got Sky Moore and Rashee Rice and, a lot of these receivers that don't have the top end speed that Mecole Hardman has. You get a little bit of the same type of guy. So gives you something a little bit different to throw out on the field.
I think this is more of an indictment against, the Sky Moore or, MVS. I still love Rice. And you see what Rice did last week, 4 receptions, 76 yards. They're just, I don't know what it is. They're just kind of easing him into it. And I expect, 125-yard game, 2 touchdown type of performance out of him pretty soon. Let's get to a question before we get into week 6 review. Flex this week. We've got Ingram or Evans. All right. While you take a look at that, Coach, I'm going to go to my rankings.
I'm going to tell you right now, I'm taking Zach Evans. Again, I think Zach, and you're going to get into this in a little bit, but if there's a week to play him, this is the week. I don't think it's Royce Freeman. I don't think it's Darrell Henderson, who's going to be active, I think, but he's only going to have less than a week of practice to get ready. I think it's going to be an opportunity for Zach Evans, unless they're going to throw the ball 55 times this week, which they've averaged over 38, passing attempts per game. But I would not be surprised to see Zach Evans, get some volume here. And if they end up in winning that game or have the lead late, they're going to give him some reps. So I like Zach Evans over Keontae Ingram personally.
I've got Ingram over Evans. I like both.
Most people do.
Here's the thing. That's just based off the fact that Ingram got a pretty good run last week. We know what we have in him. But at the same time, you're right. The things that you're talking about can happen. And if it happens, he gets the opportunity. Good things can happen with that. All right. Hey, let's jump into our week 6 review. And we're going to talk about a couple upsets right off the bat. And that's the Jets beating the Eagles 20-14. As much as people have given Zach Wilson issues or crap over the last couple of years, if you look at the box score this weekend, you see a quarterback had 3 interceptions, and the first thing you would have thought is we're talking about Zach Wilson. And with Zach Wilson, maybe not made many big plays, but he had a clean game, and he was able to not lose the game for the Jets. Your thoughts on the game, Coach?
Well, I'm going to sum this up from the Philly perspective in 2 ways. 22 runs to 45 passes for the Eagles. Swift, Gainwell, and Scott combined 14 carries for 33 yards. I get the Jets are tough against the run, but sometimes you just need to commit to it just to show it. So very unbalanced there. And then Philadelphia averaged 5 yards a play. That's great. 7 of 14 on 3rd down. That's 50% conversion. That's great. They had 104 more yards of offense than the Jets did. The difference in the game was the 4 turnovers, which is your 3 interceptions and a fumble loss. Jets did not turn the ball over. Jets win.
That's it. And, as much as we kind of expected the slide of the Jets to happen, nothing's happened on the defensive side of the ball. They're still the same defense everyone propped up, and they're looking as good as advertised. And, that Williams kid, and I'm not talking about the one up front they just gave a whole bunch of money, but that linebacker, Quincy Williams, he's played his ass off. That's a fun defense. And they also did it without their top 2 cornerbacks.
I was just going to say,
that was a great performance.
I agree. It's a great game. And, hey, as a Cowboys fan, it really beats me up to see the Eagles lose. Yeah,
I'm sure you were pretty happy about that one. Let's move on to the next one, and that's another upset. A lot of people, you and I included, propped up Brock Purdy. Not propped up, but talked highly of Brock Purdy last week. and talked highly of the 49ers offense and defense. But unfortunately, a lot of it came down with their special teams, but the Browns and that incredible defense that they have pull out a 19-17 win.
So I'll say this on Brock Purdy really quick, right? You see a lot of take lock, right? If your take was you did not like Brock Purdy, this was your game to go on Twitter and celebrate that because you've waited all season to do it, right? But if you look at the Browns, this defense is special. We're talking about 85 Bears special. They give up only 121.4 yards passing per game, first in the NFL. 51.9% completion rate, first in the NFL. 200.4 yards total passing per game, first in the NFL. 15.4 points per game, fourth in the NFL. Only 52 first downs allowed all season, first in the NFL, and a 23.1% conversion rate to opposing teams, first in the NFL on third downs.
You know what? Their third down.
This is a great football team, and defensively, what they can do. This is with your third string quarterback. Well, really, you say second, but
right. Listen to this stat against the San Francisco 49ers. San Francisco 49ers third down was third down and 11. That was their average.
Yeah.
Every time they're up there, they've got to chase 2 sticks to get a first down. I mean, that defense is pretty damn impressive.
Yeah. So before you knock the quarterback play, right, let's look at the quarterbacks. The only quarterback that's had a decent game against the Browns all season was Lamar Jackson because of what he can do with his legs.
Yeah, it's been all year, just like you said.
All year, yeah.
Hey, let's move on to another defense that's playing pretty damn good, and that's the Cincinnati Bengals. They were able to defeat Seattle 17-13, and they were able to really kind of show that even if the offense is struggling, that defense is playing pretty good.
Yeah, it's playing very good, right? I mean, you got Cincinnati just 214 yards of offense, and just 46 yards on the ground, 4 yards per play. Joe Burrow coming off a couple really good games. Yeah, he goes 24-35. Completion rate was good, 2 touchdowns, only 185 yards passing, and Joe Mixon was held to just 62 total yards on 15 touches. Jamar Chase, 6 for 80. Tyler Boyd, 7 for 38 and Tutty. T. Higgins, only 2 for 20. You got to see Mr. Princeton, Andre, and I don't know if I'm going to say his last name right because I forgot how to say it because we haven't said it since before the NFL draft, but Andre Iosivas, 1 catch, 3 yards, and a touchdown. So Mr. Princeton got in the end zone. But Seattle, hey, offensively, 381 total yards, 5.4 yards per play. They ran 70 plays. Anytime you run 70 plays, you're usually playing with the lead and you're winning. They dominated time of possession, but 2 critical interceptions. Geno Smith throws for 323 yards, but no touchdowns, 2 interceptions. So, again, turnovers. Turnovers are a big factor when you get 2 teams are evenly matched and one team turns the ball over multiple times and the other team doesn't. Usually that's a recipe for disaster if you're the one turning the ball over.
Yeah, I heard a stat today where one of the teams that played this weekend had 4 turnovers and still won the game, and that's happened only 3 times since 2003. So, Yes, turnovers are everything. Let's get to this question. You want to answer this one? I would assume, is this redraft or dynasty? That's an important part, but regardless, they're both young. So, Evans or Ingram?
Well, just say trade Zach Evans for Keontae Ingram.
Yeah, who would you rather have of those 2 long term?
Well, it's ironic because the question right before that from Andrew, which is a different Andrew,
right,
was would you play Zach Evans or Keontae Ingram in your flex this week? And we were split on that. Now you're talking about a trade, so I'm going to assume redraft 32-man full PPR.
It's Evans for me because I think Connor's going to get back, and not that Kyren Williams isn't going to get back, but I don't know. I'm going Evans.
Yeah, I'm going Evans too. And the reality is they both could be career backups, but I'll take Zach Evans. I think the upside in the draft profile is a little bit better than Keontae Ingram, so I'll take Zach Evans.
All right. Hey, let's get on to our next game from last week. And real impressive win. It may not have done with their offense. I mean, they only put up 20 points, and everyone's talking about how great that Detroit offense has been. But they were able to go on the road, beat Tampa Bay 20-6.
Yeah, Jared Goff. We've had him on our risers already. I was going to put him down again this week and realized we already put him down. But The Lions dominated time of possession, 36 minutes to 23. Jared Goff was 30 of 44 for 353, 2 touchdowns, did not turn the ball over. That's, again, a critical piece there. Demont does go down. Jahmyr Gibbs is inactive. Craig Reynolds comes in and gets you 10 carries for only 15 yards. But ARSB, and the only point I want to make on the passing game was Amon St. Brown and Sam Laporta. Between the two of them, got 26 targets. That offense is going to go through those two guys in the passing game. It's going to go through Jahmyr Gibbs and Demont in the run game. That's impressive. They converted those into 16 catches for over 100, almost 160 yards in a touchdown for ARSB. So I love what Detroit's doing. That defense last year was just an open door to do whatever you wanted to do. They have done and changed the culture of that defense. That defense is playing really, really well right now. Boy, did they hit on Aiden Hutchinson, huh?
Boy, did they hit on Sam Laporta.
Yeah.
I mean,
I love Sam Laporta,
man. I'm sure you do the same thing, but and I put together rankings, but I don't use my rankings very much for myself. I still trust the people that I trust, and it's more of a process and trying to learn and grow from my own process. But at the same time, Sam Laporta is a lot of people's dynasty number 1 tight end now. And this has happened so darn quick. You look at Dalton Kincaid, you look at the other guys, and yes, there is some
Michael Meyer,
But for Sam Laporta to do what he's doing, it's been fun to watch. Unfortunately, we talked about injuries. We didn't bring him up. He was limited today at practice, so we got to keep an eye on him. I know you and I need to keep an eye on that because we have a fantasy league, the Coach Approach team, and a new startup that we did this year in Dynasty, and Sam Laporta is turning out to be one of our better picks.
Yeah, along with Devin Acham before he got hurt. We're 10-2 in a dynasty league where we went young and thought we were going to be a year away, and we've hit on almost every young guy that we picked up. So
we got Goff in the 4th round.
Yeah,
we got Purdy like in the 8th or 9th round. We kind of pushed our quarterbacks a little bit back. I mean, our receivers I know we shouldn't be talking about this right now, but damn it, I'm excited about that team. Our receivers are Waddle, Chase. There's a Metcalf, Flowers. So yeah, I love that team. But let's move on. And there's not many teams I can love right now. I'm 0-6 now in my home league. I love the team, but God bless, I'd sure like to see some better results. Speaking of better results, I'm sure you were happy to see your Cowboys pull out the win after they had a tough loss the week before. They're able to win 20-17. And Dak Prescott, that's the Dak Prescott that I think that you should expect. He's not going to be a fantasy huge performer, but he's not. If we can get the Dak Prescott that played like he did the other day, or Dak, not Zach, I think you would be happy.
Yeah, and this was pre-compound fracture of the foot, Dak. I mean, this was that zone read, and it's funny because I was talking to a couple buddies of mine who are in another league with, and we're all Cowboy fans, and I was telling them about that, because one of them was asking, how come Dak never pulls on the zone read? And I said, look, as a coach, as an offensive coordinator, I would tell the quarterback, you would say give or keep. If you were like, hey, you're definitely going to give on this no matter what, you're going to keep on this no matter what. If you don't tag it with either one, you're letting your quarterback make the read. I said, I would not be surprised if they were having him give, right, and hand the ball off. You set that up for later, right, and perfect time to pull it. What's interesting is he outran Derwin James to the end zone too. If you watch the film, Derwin James either wasn't running hard, which is a problem, or Dak Prescott, it was quicker than Derwin James on that play. But anyway, great to see him pull it. Yeah.
Both former high school coaches.
Yeah.
My first half of my career, most of my career, was running the option. And it was running the option at the lower level. And so, yes, give and pull, that was always called by this guy right here because and you're saying that mostly because, hey, look, man, we don't know if you're right with your foot. Let's just show it and go with it. And now they may be taking that restriction or that leash off.
But I think what was interesting about this game too is, Dak, 21-30, 272, throws a touchdown, doesn't turn it over, gets you 40 yards on the ground and a score rushing. But I think the concern, if you're Dallas, first of all, 20 penalties for 164 yards combined between the two teams. Seems like there was a flag on every other play. It was an ugly game from that perspective. The time of possession was pretty even. The difference was they both ran 61 plays exactly to the number, but Dallas was 5.6 yards per play. Chargers were only 4.5. But Tony Pollard, and I wanted to go back and find my tweet from before Zeke Elliott, before last season, when I talked about Tony Pollard and the touch count, and my concern with the amount of volume that he's getting, and that's proven to be true this year, is he has kind of worn down 30 yards on 15 carries. He had 6 grabs for 80 yards, but most of that was off of Dak making a play out of the pocket, finds Tony Pollard. Tony Pollard does a spin move, somehow breaks a couple tackles and goes for, 55 yards, 65 yards. So, but Tony Pollard's efficiency has not been there. But it was great to see them get back to force feeding CeeDee Lamb. The stat that I took away from this game was, and I posted this on Twitter, CeeDee Lamb, 7 targets, 7 grabs. Brandon Cook, 4 targets, 4 grabs. Michael Gallup, 10 targets, only 3 grabs. Dak Prescott's numbers throwing to the wide receiver position, his only incomplete passes, which were 7 of the wide receiver position, all belong to Michael Gallup. Couple drops, couple throws, but just there's some concerns there with Michael Gallup's ability to separate, and I don't love how he fights through contact at the top end of his routes. Not to talk like the wide receiver coach that I am, but there's some frustration there with Michael Gallup. Like, I don't see the heart. I don't see the him getting pissed off and wanting to play physical, and that's a big part of Gallup's game.
He certainly had the opportunity. 10 targets.
He did.
I mean, you got to be damn happy if your wide receiver 2 at best is getting 10 targets.
Yeah. Frustrating.
I'll tell you what, there's frustrating from the other side of the ball too, and that's with the Los Angeles Chargers, because I don't know if the middle finger on the left hand of Herbert is causing him issues, but he made some poor throws, and the Quentin Johnston demise or not bursting out or not kind of popping yet is a concern. And when you see guys like Justin Jefferson and guys who have really didn't take a lot of time to develop and to be incorporated in offense, it makes you a little more concerned with another first-round pick is struggling in doing so.
Yeah, Quentin Johnson, 2 targets, no grabs.
Yeah.
And there was somebody who posted on Twitter showing all the routes that Quentin Johnston ran, and as kind of stating the case of, hey, he's kind of being asked to take the top off, just kind of be a decoy. But there's a couple plays where it looked like he may have gotten open. Look, these plays that are this is the NFL level. This is the highest level. There's route concepts that are put in play based on what you see. There's pre and post snap reads the quarterback is looking at, and I can tell you, Quentin Johnston's not anywhere near the first read in that offense. So when you're watching plays where he gets open, it doesn't matter. That's not the read that the quarterback is even looking at. So, yeah, there's some concerns there. And Austin Eckler, coming back from injury, only 27 yards on 14 carries. Dallas did a great job there. But he did have 4 grabs for 35 yards on 6 targets. Austin Eckler is going to be just fine. I do have some concerns about Justin Herbert, and I get what you say about the finger, but he had a lot of throws that were off target. Should have had a 75-yard touchdown to Keenan Allen and just missed him. Yep.
I don't know what that is. Is it the injury? Is it because I don't think that's who he is I think he's got to be hurt. There's no other way for me to be able to pinpoint it. And sometimes, they just aren't on in a particular game.
Yeah.
We got a couple questions before we move on to the Thursday night game. First one, I need to pick a running back. Should I play Jerome Ford, Madison, or claim Zach Evans using A.J. Dillon? Okay, well, I will just look at it. I got Ford, Madison, and then everybody else. So if you're playing 2, I would play Ford and Madison over any of the other options that you bring up.
Yeah, if it's 2, those are 2 I'm going with 2. And if it's 1, then I'm going with Jerome Ford, simply because Kareem Hunt, and I know a lot of guys want to pick him up on waivers, is nursing a little bit of an injury. Jerome Ford looked good last week. I still think Jerome Ford is the RB1 there in Cleveland.
I think Jerome Ford's numbers are going to improve too when you get Watson back in the offense.
I agree.
T-Bag, love the name first and foremost, but is T-Law playing this week? I mean, that's limited practice today. Tomorrow's the game. I would wait till about 4:45 if you live on the West Coast. I would wait till about a half an hour before game time. You're going to find out around then. So I would assume that he is playing.
I would assume he's playing as well.
All right, let's get into the Thursday night game because everyone's worried about T-Law and what that's going to do. But we got Jacksonville 4-2 at the New Orleans Saints. Who wins? I'll go first. I like Jacksonville winning 24-17. That's with T-Law. I'm thinking he's playing. I like Jacksonville in this one. What about you, Coach?
So I went a little bit different, but I'm going to make a couple points here. So Jaguars have several players banged up on a short week. You got Trevor Lawrence, which we've talked about. You've got Zay Jones with the knee, who's doubtful to play this week. You've got left guard Walker Little with the MCL. He's out. You have right guard Brandon Scherf with the ankle. He's likely out. And you've got corner Tyson Campbell, who is doubtful, not expected to play. So there's some, with the offensive line, there's some things there. The Saints are a very, very a good defense. And so I look at this and say, if you take away the 2 games against the Colts, the Jaguars are only averaging 18.5 points per game and now face a stingy New Orleans defense. The Saints rank 6th in pass defense and have allowed 20 or less points in 5 of 6 games. I'm taking the Saints, and I think with T-Law, I think New Orleans 20, Jacksonville 17. If it's TJ Beathard, it's New Orleans 24, Jacksonville 10, and that 10's probably being generous because they are banged up. But I think New Orleans finds a way to win at home. They're 3-3, and I think they need to find a way to get another win. So I'm taking the Saints in this one.
There you go. The line is Saints minus 1.5. Over and under is 42.5. I think we're both on the over.
I've got the under, actually. Well, okay. Yeah, I've got the over. If actually, I've got the under on both, even if T-Law plays. I think you've got the over, yeah.
Yeah. Let's get into the start and sits, and then we'll get to Andrew. Who do you like to start for Jacksonville?
So starting, I've got, because we don't know the quarterback situation, and based on the Saints defense and what they do in the passing game, they're only giving up 14.5 fantasy points per game. So I'm going to go through each team start and sit. So I've got Trevor Lawrence as a sit for Jacksonville. CJ Beathard, if he plays, obviously is a sit. The only ones I am playing are Travis Etienne. He's RB3 in PPR formats. He scored more than 20 fantasy points in 3 out of 6 games with an average of 29.9 over the last 2. And there's no committee. Etienne's getting 79% of the snaps, 72% of the rush share, and 63% of the route share. So Tank Bigsby is not a factor. So I'm playing him, and I am playing Christian Kirk. After dropping a dud in week 1, which is 1.9 fantasy points, he has scored no less than 13.9 over the last 5 with an average of 16.4. The Saints are more vulnerable to receivers lined up in the slot, which is why I've got Christian Kirk over Calvin Ridley this week. I think he leads that receiving group. I've got Calvin Ridley, to me, is not a must start. I've got him highlighted in yellow, which means depending on your roster, you may have to start him, but he's not a must start for me. But he's not a sit either. And that's it. That's the only guys I've got starting for them. For the Saints, I've got Alvin Kamara, RB7 in weeks 4 through 6, which is basically all he's played this year, averaging 19.2 fantasy points per game. He's only 3.8 yards per touch with just 1 touchdown, but he's seeing almost 26 touches a game. Opportunity. He was getting an opportunity, so I'm going to play him. He's heavily involved in the passing game, so he's a play. Chris Olave, wide receiver 11 going into this week against Jacksonville that ranks 24th against the wide receiver position. Has 22 grabs on 32 targets for 302 yards over the first 3 weeks before the toe injury. Struggled over last 2 in weeks 4 and 5, nursing that toe injury. Bounced back last week with 7 grabs for 96 yards on 10 targets. So I'm playing Chris Olave. Here's my surprise play this week, Taysom Hill. Tight end 6 last week, played 46 snaps, lined up more as a traditional tight end. We know that Juwan Johnson is out. Great to see Foster Moreau get back in the mix. Jimmy Graham is 36 years old, right? So you might see him a little bit in the red zone, but he finished last week, Taysom Hill, 7 grabs on 8 targets for 49 yards. He's not found the end zone yet this year, which is surprising, considering he's got 24 carries for 120 yards. But I'm playing Taysom Hill this week. I mean, the tight end landscape overall isn't great. I'll play Taysom Hill if he's going to get that kind of usage.
Totally agree on that. And, the great thing about him is that any game, they might just say, hey, get in the backfield. Next thing you know, he's got a 1-yard touchdown run. Yeah. I mean, he's just got weird upside that most tight ends don't. He can throw a touchdown pass, for crying out loud.
Yeah. I like this question. Player props, man. I'm all for it. Let's do it.
Okay, so let's get into it. So here it is right here. Yeah. Based off the analysis that you just gave us, I'm guessing Kirk over 55, Ridley no over 53.
Yeah, Saints are better against receivers on the outside. And if CJ Beathard is playing, this is again, if CJ Beathard is playing and T-Law is not, then I don't really care for either one of those. But if T-Law is playing, I like Christian Kirk over 55 yards. I'm probably not going to play the Calvin Ridley prop, which means it'll probably be the opposite. But I've done pretty well with my player props over the last few weeks. But that I would lean Christian Kirk there.
And let's get to another question. We've got start two. We've got start two, full PPR, Rice, Dotson, Algier, or Bourne. My gosh, that is rough.
I'll tell you where I'd go.
I'm
right
going
now.
Rice and Algier, Coach. I really like Rice this week against Denver.
Yeah, I'm definitely going. We're both high on Rice, so we know. I knew you were going to go there. Dotson, I'm out on. He's getting snaps taken away by Curtis Samuel. We'll get into that in a little bit. So I'm not playing Dotson. I'm playing Rice. Then it comes down to Algier, who's getting like a 50-50 split in Atlanta. So he's getting the opportunities. He's getting some work in the red zone. And then you've got Kendrick Bourne, who is kind of becoming the wide receiver one, so to speak, there. But Mac Jones is playing so bad that I would lean Tyler Algier and Rashee Rice as well.
Let's get to another question. Here we go. We've got David.
Happy hump day.
Whoop. Just traded Ken Walker and Garrett Wilson for Cooper Kupp in a 10-man PPR, currently 4-2. Good and bad. Did I put too much in? Okay, so we all know that running backs are very difficult to stay healthy the whole year. So for me, I'd rather have – I think we're seeing enough. I think Garrett Wilson's become much more touchdown dependent as far as him being a wide receiver one, but I still would rather have Wilson and Walker instead of just Kupp. Your thoughts, Coach?
Yeah, so I mean, and I know I say this a lot. Kenneth Walker is getting the lion's share. Zach Charbonnet has not been much of a factor. Kenneth Walker, I think, has scored a touchdown on the ground in 3 or 4 consecutive games. So he's given you as much of a workhorse as you can get in the NFL these days. There's not a whole lot of them. So I want to hang on to those guys. Garrett Wilson, Zach Wilson is starting to play a little bit better. And he's starting to see more targets. So I still believe in the talent of Garrett Wilson. So as good as Cooper Kupp is, I'm taking the 2-for-1 here.
There you go. Let's go next one. Just your general thoughts. Signing. Did we miss this? Did we not talk about Julio Jones signing? I thought I had it in
We
notes.
did miss it, but we got some notes on it.
Yeah, because we must have just skipped over it. Julio Jones signing with the Eagles. I know you're going to get into the numbers. For me, I think it's almost a bring a veteran in. Not that I think that locker room needs that type of leadership, but at the same time, it's kind of a weird move. I guess you can get more into why it's a weird move, but I'll tell you what, I did not go out of the way to pick him up.
Yeah, I spent 0 fab on him. There's nothing to see here. Your receivers and your pass catchers in that offense are going to be Dallas Goedert, Devontae Smith, and A.J. Brown. You might see a little bit. You're going to see Julio Jones obviously out there because Quez Watkins was put on IR with a hamstring injury. He's 34 years old, spent last season with Tampa Bay, where he finished with just 24 grabs for 299 yards and 2 scores in 10 games. So that's 2.4 grabs and 29.9 yards per game. There's nothing exciting about putting Julio Jones. I love the interview today. I loved how he kind of backed off of trying to, say how great he was going to be and just said, hey, yes, I can absolutely still play, but I'm not going to say it. I'm going to show it. Well, with that's going to have to come opportunity. I don't know how much opportunity he's going to get in that offense. So to me, there's nothing to see there.
We're in the same boat, but I like it. He's one of my favorite players
Me too.
of all time.
Love the
Julio
talent.
Jones and Matt Ryan won me a fantasy league championship in my home league, but it's 2023. Ravens defense or Browns defense? It's Browns defense. That Browns defense, you said it earlier, they are very similar to the 85 Bears. I'm all about the Browns defense.
Yeah, I went through all the numbers on the Browns defense earlier. I don't know if T-Bag saw it or not, but I just like to throw the word T-Bag out there. Since that's the name, we can have some fun with it. T-Bag, you're welcome on the show anytime you want. You can double down. But, I'm going Browns defense. They are so good against both the run and the pass. And if you look at what they've done this year against opposing offenses, and again, I'll say it again. It reminds me of the 1985 Bears, and it reminds me of the Giants when they had Carl Banks and Lawrence Taylor and those guys. It is that dominant of a defense. So I'm definitely going to take the Browns defense there over the Ravens.
All right, let's get to another question. This one's got a lot of parts to it. So let's read it first. We only got to start 2. We've got Samuel, Palmer, Reynolds, Evans, Bourne, Warren, Foreman. Holy smokes. Who are the 2 you starting, Coach?
I got to get through them all. So let's go through elimination because this is how I do these. I go through and say I'm not playing
Hardman,
this guy.
no. Take Hardman out. He's the
Hardman's
first
out. Shaheed is out.
Yep.
Foreman is out. Rashawn Johnson should be playing this week. Jalen Warren.
We're not going to throw him away yet. We're
not going to throw him away. I will. But yeah, I see of those guys I've listed, he's definitely the best guy. Bourne, I already talked about. Don't trust Mac Jones. Don't trust the Patriots offense. So Bourne is out.
I'm not playing Evans over these other guys.
I'm not playing Evans over these guys. Reynolds is a sneaky wide receiver too, but you've got Laporta, you've got Amon-Ra St. Brown, and you've got Jameson Williams now who's in the mix.
I think I'm going with Samuel and Palmer.
I was just going to say I'm going to go Samuel. It's hard because I like what Palmer's done. I like his usage. He's definitely been the wide receiver too. But Herbert struggles. Dang, man, I really want to say Rashee Rice, but I just don't see the target share there yet. He's had consecutive games with 4 or 5 targets, but he hasn't found it. But he's not. I'm probably going to go Palmer and Samuel. Is that what you said?
That's what I said. I love Rice. I'm playing Rice this week in my home league over a I've got a few buys myself. So I think I'm playing in my home league just to hope for the ceiling in that one. Because, again, I really believe you're going to see a 122 touchdown game out of Rashee Rice here in the near future.
Oh, I love the talent. I just don't believe the target share is going to be there yet.
All right, hey, let's get into first and foremost, my commissioner. We're old. We've been in the same league since 1994. He's even older. He's a retired teacher. I'm assuming he can't figure out how to do a comment, but he's got a couple comments that he would like me to pass on. First and foremost, he's a little bit upset because I was able to get the Brooks running back today in our waiver wire, and I told you how we do it.
Chris Brooks?
Yes, I got Chris Brooks, and I paid only $7. This is real money. I love the way we do it because it makes me feel like if I really want someone, I'm going to get them. There's not many times if I want someone that I'm overbid. But Brooks, I only put $7 on him. I think we're still a week or 2 away from when he can maybe have an opportunity. As long as Mostert is healthy, it's Mostert's position. And Achane is not coming back in the next few weeks. So with that being said, I wouldn't be surprised if Brooks gets more opportunity over the few weeks. So I thought I'd put in a low amount for him and kind of get him a week or 2 early. And then his second thing, I told you I went hunting. Wasn't able to, he wants to hear a story about the trip real quick. And it involves with me taking a dump outside and a tarantula meeting me while I'm doing so. And I have the worst tarantula bite on the backside of my ass. And so, Commissioner, there you go. I shared the story. I'm glad that you thought that was necessary for me to do so. So sitting down for the last 49 minutes has not been the most comfortable thing, but we will move on to our risers and fallers. Coach, usually I always go first with the risers and fallers. Why don't you kick this one off?
All right, so my first riser, I've got Dalton Schultz, quickly becoming C.J. Stroud's security blanket, which is what we thought he would be coming into the season, but a very slow start to the year. He averages 3.9 fantasy points per game through the first 3 games, but over the last 3, he's at 16.3. He's the tight end 2 over that span. He's now the tight end 7 on the season in PPR formats. He's seen 17 targets over the last 2 games, 11 grabs for 126 yards. He's also scored a touchdown in 3 straight games. So Dalton Schultz is a riser for me.
Like it. And, I have a league in which I have both. I only have 2 tight ends in a league, and I have Schultz and Pitts. And now it's nice that Pitts is starting to produce, that I have a decision to make. You know what I mean? Because early on I was playing Dalton, but now I've got some tough decisions with both these guys playing at least
Alex
better.
Johnson's laughing at you.
Yeah, I don't know why. I mean, let me just sit up here for a second.
You just told a tarantula bit your ass story. That's why.
Yeah, let me sit up. That's our boss, by the way. Holy smokes. All right, hey, let's move on to my
Hold on, I got to add some of that story real quick.
Yes.
So ironically, because it was a tarantula, so we're doing the wedding up north, right? Up towards Sedona or Cottonwood. And there is I'm not kidding when I tell you, I don't do bugs, bro. Cockroaches, big spiders. I'm a 6'2", 290-pound hunk of man meat. I do not do, and I don't do it. So anyway, this thing comes flying out, and he's got like little fangs sticking out, and I've never seen it before, and it's coming right at us. There's three of us. And the guy who ends up taking it out, his son is an offensive lineman at ASU. And so, of course, he's a big dude, too. That thing came out, and his little fingers, I swear to God, that thing came by and winked and just kept going. But he swatted it down. Turns out it was a tarantula hawk, which I didn't know has one of the most, one of the, what do they call it? The most, the sting. Yeah, it was extremely painful. Yeah. It was on a show where a guy was intentionally stinging himself, and he said it was one of the worst stings he'd ever felt. Literally a half hour later, another one comes down, like literally nose diving at the same guy that slapped the other one out of the ground. Like, dude, you pissed off his family, bro. That's how it works. Man. So just funny you brought up tarantula, man.
It wasn't funny for me. Let me just say that. Although everyone around the campfire loved it. They said, thank God we're not dealing with a rattlesnake bite, because no one's sucking shit out of your ass. All right, hey, let's move on. Hopefully Alex is no longer watching. Let's get to my first riser, and that's Zach Evans. Do I know if Zach Evans is going to be someone great? No, I don't. Do I know that he's going to get an opportunity to kind of show us if he can be? Yeah, I think he's going to get that opportunity, and I think his value's already increased just over the last 6 days since that's occurred. And yet this is a guy who is a former 5-star recruit. He was in the top 20 recruits out of Houston high school, struggled a bit in college, played 2 years at TCU. NIL opened up. He was offered money by Mississippi, went over to Ole Miss, started 8 games on the year, suffered a few injuries, but he rushed for 936 yards, 6.5 yards a carry, and had 9 touchdowns. If he gets an opportunity, proves that he can do with it, we know that he's got the skill and the talent. It means something. That 5-star recruit stuff means something. When you get guys that don't work out, who have that billing, it's usually something up here that prevents it from happening. So if he has the opportunity, I like Zach Evans. I like the fact that he's going to get to show us if he is that player or not.
I agree with you 100%, man. I'm excited to see him play this week, and hopefully it plays out the way we think it will, as we were talking about earlier. I don't think Darrell Henderson's going to be ready, and I don't think Royce Freeman's anything to worry about. So this is Zach Evans' opportunity, man.
Here we go. Before we get into your second riser, I've got a deep bench of quarterbacks and guys on the IR. We all have a bunch of guys on the IR. I have Gibbs, CMC, Aaron Jones, Kyren Wilson Jr., Laporta, Olave, Puka, Lamb. Purdy. What should I do to improve? Holy smokes. Rob, I'll be honest with you. This might be something, if you want, you can reach me at Brett L. Pape on Twitter or at Coach Bruce 122 on Twitter. Send your roster, maybe send a link to the team. We'd be glad to look over and kind of recommend directions you can go. But to just see that, it would be tough for me to I feel like your running backs are good. You're going to get healthier here soon. Wilson Jr. is going to come back. Achon's going to come back. Hopefully Aaron Jones comes back. So you got a nice group. It's all about whether or not – I feel like you got a pretty darn good team looking at it. But there's just so much more information we would need to see it.
Yeah, there's a lot to unpeel there, and not knowing the rest of your roster, or if that is your entire roster, and not knowing what other players have in your league and the scoring system. So there's some things there that we would need to know. But I would just tell you off first glance, I mean, your running back room with Jahmyr Gibbs, CMC, Aaron Jones, Devon Achane, you're obviously, and then Wilson Jr. coming back from injury. You're dealing with a lot of guys that are coming out of injury, are currently injured, whatever. But I'm not making any moves there because I love it, especially if you're going down a playoff run late in the season. We love Laporta at tight end, you know that. Puka's
love Olave, love Puka, love Lamb.
Yeah, we love your wide receiver room, and Purdy's going to have a bye here in week 10, so you're going to have to figure something out there. But yeah, send us that on Twitter, man. We'll dig into it with you.
All right, hey, let's go to the next one. We've got Patrick crumbling at the running back. PPR, have James Cook. James Cook has been somewhat of a disappointment. Then Mixon, Connor, and Monty need a running back 2 for the week. Hunt, Edwards, McLaughlin, Foreman, Ingram. Let me look at what I got here. But just looking at that, first thing I'm thinking is Edwards, but we'll give you a better look. What are your thoughts, Coach?
Let me read through it again. We keep getting questions, which is great. So let's moving it up. Let me see. James Cook, Crumbling at running back, have James Cook, Joe Mixon, James Conner, and D-Mont need our RB2 for the week. Hunt, Edwards, McLaughlin, Foreman, Ingram, Algier. Should I try upgrading Mixon or Cook in a trade? I mean, trade depends on what you can get. I mean, yeah, if you can upgrade Mixon and Cook, but at the same time,
otherwise it's Hunt or Edwards.
Yeah, it's going to be Hunter Edwards, and I would lean Edwards because Hunt's coming off, is nursing a little bit of an injury this week. So I still think that Jerome Ford is the RB1 there. So I would lean Gus Edwards. At least there we know he's the RB1. He's just, he's going to split some shares with his own quarterback.
All right, hey, let's get into your second riser, Coach. Who do you have that's someone we should look at trading for or picking up off the waiver wire?
So I've got Adam Thielen.
Huh.
Did anybody have Adam Thielen as overall wide receiver 3 in PPR formats on your bingo card going into this year? I know I certainly didn't. I thought he was washed 2 years ago. So
a lot of people were very critical. A lot of people were very critical that they didn't do enough to surround Bryce Young this year. And one of the things they kept saying is, look, we got an old vet. We still think he's got a little juice, and he's going to be perfect for him. And he's been exactly that. It's
like, it's almost like you're waiting to see if there's going to be an injury. Like, it's almost like the Cinderella story. I mean, over the last 4 weeks, he's got 48 targets, 40 grabs, 443 yards, and 3 touchdowns. And on the season, he's over 500 yards and 4 touchdowns. He scored just 3.2 points in week 1, right? Since then, he is the wide receiver 1 in total fantasy points with 123.3. With a rookie quarterback in an offense that nobody was really that excited about. And here he is producing like it's, 2014 and 15 right now.
Hey, we had a question that we missed, and fortunately Alex jumped in the comments and answered it for us, but Roschon Johnson worth picking up. He's still available in my league. That's a yes. I mean, you've got Herbert on the IR. He's out for at least another 3. Foreman was so good that they put him on the inactive list the first 5 weeks until Herbert got hurt. So, yes, pick up Roschon Johnson. He should be back, concussion, but should be good to go. Love the ability that you get to pick him up. Family leagues are best. I don't think I've ever lost a family league. Unfortunately, I've never been able to play one because they won't play.
Family leagues are the ones you win, then you get kicked out and don't get invited back. Same with work leagues that I won 3 years in a row, and then I didn't get invited back. But, hey, there was a question that Caden, the Colts fan, had. I think we skipped over it. I just traded CD Lamb for Zach Evans and Jahmyr Gibbs. Win or lose? You probably know where I'm at on this one.
I'm in the same spot. I mean, CD Lamb is top 3 or 4 receiver, in my opinion, in the NFL. So I'm keeping him easily. So that's a loss. Look, when we talk about Zach Evans being a riser, when we talk about being excited, we're talking about being excited about the opportunity. We still don't know if he's going to do anything with it. So as much as I like the kid, I'm not doing anything remotely like that. And we still haven't seen enough out of Gibbs to even warrant a trade where you're only adding a Zach Evans to it to get a CD. So I hate to say it. I've made a lot of trades in my life that were L's. So they happen. Just learn from them and try and move on, I guess is the best way to put it. My second riser, Michael Mayer. I mean, this kid is really, he was before Dalton Kincaid kind of took off late in the season last year. He was a lot of guys' number 1 tight end going into the season, going into this draft, I should say. He only has 8 receptions on the year, but he's definitely heating up. Had 6 targets last week with 5 receptions, 75 yards. His role is only going to grow. I love Michael Mayer.
Yeah, I like Michael Mayer too, and I always like to call him Michael Myers. I always want to think of Halloween.
It's funny. He's waiting till Halloween season to come around. So you got.
I was going with it, man.
No, I took it from
that was good.
I did. Sorry about that.
No, that was good, man. I'm surprised you even knew. That was good. I love it.
Yeah, I do too. All right, who's your second riser, coach? Oh, you already did your second one. Who's your third riser?
So I went a little deeper on this one. Curtis Samuel. Over the last 3 games, he's the wide receiver 9 in PPR scoring with an average of 17 points a game. He's got 19 targets, 17 grabs, 158 yards, and 2 scores in those 3 games. He's seen 20% or more targets per route run in 2 of the last 3 games compared to just 4% for Jahan Dotson last week. He's taken over Jahan Dotson, and Jahan Dotson if he's out there, he's not first or second reading the progression. It has been Curtis Samuel, it has been Terry McLaurin, it has been Logan Thomas, although Logan had a rough week last week. But I'm big on Curtis Samuel rest of the season and the role that he's gotten. And people forget he's also a guy that can get you carries out of the backfield in a pinch.
I love it. He's made Jahan Dotson basically not worthy of playing ever. It's been impressive.
Unfortunate.
To watch. It is unfortunate, but great for Curtis Samuel. Drake London, that's my last riser. And obviously you're talking about a guy who was drafted very high in the draft, but his ranking in dynasty football was based off of the fact that he was highly drafted or highly picked. Now it's starting to look like he's got the talent that we all thought he had. He's averaging 8.5 targets a season, but saw a career high last week with 12, finished with 9 receptions for 125 yards, has 26 receptions on the year for 329 yards and 2 TDs. Always had the talent. It was always a matter of Arthur Smith figuring it out or Desmond Ridder figuring out, and just that offense being more productive. Looks like things are finally moving in the right direction as far as it relates to Drake London. And you can also say the same thing for Kyle Pitts.
Look how far we've come. We actually put an Arthur Smith pass catcher in a riser category.
And it wasn't Pitts. Yes.
Life is beautiful sometimes, isn't it?
It is. That's all we ever wanted. We just wanted these guys that have enormous amount of talent, ability. You spent a lot of capital in your rookie drafts on them. Just give us something. Make us. And it's sickening to hear coaches tell us we don't care about fantasy football. But at the same time, do you care about winning? I mean, if they're that good, if you're going to spend that type of capital on them, at least utilize them. Okay, that's it. I won't get more into that.
We can beat that one up all night long.
Yeah. All day, baby, all day. All right, here we go. We got a question. Currently 2-4, 10-man PPR. Lineup. Tua, I would have guessed Tyreek Hill, Devontae Smith, Brian Robinson, Ford, Waller, Flex, Cooper. Defense, bench, London, Judy. Any thoughts on getting better? These questions are difficult without having any more. I would definitely try and get better at the running back position. You're looking at only Robinson. In a 10-man league, I would expect to have a better running back league or running back room other than Robinson and Ford as my starting guys. So if I can make a trade, I got Hill and Smith. If you can make a trade if you can maybe possibly get a good back for Devontae Smith and then slide London, that might help you. Hubbard has been playing better. I think he's a better back than Miles Sanders. So, but yeah, I guess the best thing I would do is trade Devontae Smith or London for a better back. What about you, Coach?
Yeah, I'm with you because you got Drake London and Tyreek Hill there that become your starting wide receivers. And, of course, I think you said in the flex you've got Amari Cooper. So at that point, I like that receiver room. So you have some flexibility to trade one of those receivers. And I think Devontae Smith, to me, I agree, is the guy of those 4 that I would want to trade. And he's got a little bit more trade value than Drake London just because of the offense he's in. And Tua and Tyreek Hill, I'm not touching that. I'm keeping that stack all day long. Matter of fact, I'm not even afraid to go out and try to get a Jalen Waddle, but on your team, you don't need to do that. You need to focus on grabbing a running back to add to Brian Robinson and Jerome Ford. So, and Chuba Hubbard. So,
yeah, see what you can get for either Smith. Yeah, try and trade Smith or London for a back. That's what I would recommend. All right, hey, let's get into our followers, Coach. My first one, even though you're going first, so go ahead and kick off your first follower.
My first follower is Najee Harris, and I can't remember if we had him on already. If we didn't, then shame on us because it's been gross all year long. So the thing about Najee Harris that made him fantasy relevant was the volume he was getting, right? Same thing with Zeke Elliott in his last couple of years in Dallas. As long as he was going to get that kind of volume, he was going to find his way into the end zone. He's going to get you a couple of grabs. He's going to get you 10 points a week, and that's enough to put him in your lineup in certain games. So, but Najee has only scored more than 10 points one time this season. His average over the 4 games is just 5.5 fantasy points per game in PPR formats. It's almost an even split with Jaylen Warren. Najee saw 54% of the snaps to Jaylen Warren's 45. Najee's seeing 57% of the rush share, but just a 5% target share. So in PPR, he's useless. Half PPR, he's useless. And even in standard scoring, now he's no longer getting the volume, and he's not getting carries in the red zone. He's not getting in the end zone. So Najee Harris is an absolute, I'll take a bag of chips for Najee Harris right now.
Yeah, and we saw it coming. I mean, I've been as big of a fan of Jaylen Warren as anybody. And Jaylen Warren, the only problem that's stopping him right now, I think, is mostly the offense has struggled. But yes, totally agree. And the reason why he got so much volume early in the career is because he had an Anthony McFarland behind him, or he had, it's tough because there was a lot invested in him by both fantasy managers and the Pittsburgh Steelers. So you expect more out of a guy who got first-round draft capital. Okay, my first one is Tutu Atwell. He got 27 targets first 3 weeks. They found ways to get him the ball as far as in jet sweeps and other things like that. You kind of said, here we go. We got a third-year wide receiver breakout, like what used to always happen. There never used to be guys like Justin Jefferson in year 1 or Jamar Chase. So you kind of thought that this was going to be something that was going to continue. But then Cooper Kupp comes back. And it's really hurt him. And it's hurt him that last week he only had 1 target. He's no longer someone you can actually play in a flex role for me.
Yeah, it's been tough. I mean, it's Puka Nacua and it's Cooper Kupp. I mean, those are we've hit on this early in the show. You hit on again talking about Tutu Atwell, and unfortunately, there's not enough targets left over. Even in an offense that's throwing the ball 40 times a game, those are the first 2 guys. That's the number 1 and number 2 read in almost every play. So hate to see it because there was a lot of promise during the first few weeks. And look, there's a role for him. But it's hit or miss.
He's certainly better than Van Jefferson. That was a wide receiver 3 before. Yep, so now he's got pop, but the opportunity is no longer there. And that's everything when you're trying to start a guy. Can he get targets? Can he get carries? And it just doesn't look like he's going to do that. And if you're a if you're a Puka Nacua owner and you were worried going into Cooper Kupp coming back, even though you didn't get a lot last week out of Puka, you still see the volume. He had a drop touchdown. Yeah. And so his points. I saw that. Yeah. So it's just somebody was going to drop, and it was Tutu Atwell that dropped when Cooper Kupp came back. Who's your second faller, Coach?
Well, ironic. It's another Rams player, pass catcher, Tyler Higbee. To your point, we know who they're targeting. In 2 games since Cooper Kupp's return, Higbee has 4 and 3.8 fantasy points. In those 2 games, he had a total of 6 targets, 4 grabs for only 38 yards, and has not found the end zone. He hasn't found the end zone all season, let alone the last 2 games. It has become the Cooper Kupp and Puka Nacua show in LA. In an offense, it's thrown 227 pass attempts in just 6 games this season at 37.8 per game. We've touched on it multiple times in this show. Unfortunately, if your name's not Puka and it's not Cooper, you're probably not getting the rock.
Puka, man. I'll tell you, is there any player in fantasy football whose value from the preseason to now in Dynasty has grown more? I can't imagine. I mean, he was ranked anywhere between 150 and 200 in Dynasty rankings. And granted, he was only a 5th-round draft pick. But now he's like, if you look at somebody's rankings in Dynasty, he's top 25. His ascension has just been remarkable.
Well, what's crazy is even if Cooper Kupp had started the year and wasn't injured, Puka Nacua, you're still looking at it based on where he was drafted, where he played college ball, his size, his athletic profile, and you're still saying, hey, this is a 4'6" guy. He's not a big guy. He's not a speed guy. He's not a phenomenal route runner. He's good at finding space, especially in zone coverage, but he's still going to get you 7 targets, 4 grabs, 48 yards, and you might find the end zone. At that, we would have said, this is great. Right. This is great return on your draft capital.
Floor. Yeah, absolutely. 5th-round guy. I mean, I picked him up in free agency. If you drafted him, you drafted him in a rookie draft that had 4 or 5 rounds.
So I got him for $31 in a league I'm in. It's a cash league, my big money league. Spent 31% of my fab at $100. Turned around and traded him for Cooper Kupp and got $20 of my fab back. There were some other players involved in that trade, but I came out. Now the guys in the league, when they first saw the trade, they're like, dude, how in the frick? Now the other guys, pissed off that he made the trade, but it's like he got 3 starters out of it, but I got 2 really good ones. It worked out.
Yep, there you go. Elijah Moore is my next follower for me. Many thought he was going to be used better when he got traded from the Jets to Cleveland. He did. He is getting more usage, but it's still, again, I talk about Tutu Atwell not being a guy you can he's not a guy you can start any longer. And Elijah Moore, I mean, there are a lot of leagues, and you talk about those deep super flex leagues. He played for me at the flex spot, but he just isn't doing it at enough volume. He's got 21 receptions on the year, only 167 yards, no touchdowns, not someone that you can really play. So Elijah Moore is a follow for me this week. Who's your last one, Coach?
So I've got Zach Ertz, and it hurts to say it. It just does.
Not if you're a Trey McBride guy.
Yeah, which I am. I do have put it this way, I've got 1 share of Zach Ertz in 22 teams. I've got about 10 of Trey McBride. You're right. He scored less than 10 fantasy points in 4 out of 6 games. He's only averaging 6.6 over the last 2. Ertz saw a season low 52% route participation last week, while Trey McBride saw a season high 48%. So McBride and Ertz have split the target share over the last 2 weeks, with both guys getting 8 over that span. You're starting to see Trey McBride take over that tight end 1 situation. He's younger. He's quicker. He can give you more after the catch. He's a little more athletic at this point at Zach Ertz's age. I think you're going to start to see Trey McBride play a bigger role, especially if you get Kyler Murray back.
That'll be fun to watch, because that's what we've been kind of waiting for. As much as I love Trey McBride, I expected more out of him at this point in his career.
So did I. I agree.
So hopefully,
well said.
Hopefully we'll see more from him here in the next few weeks. Hunter Henry is my last one. It's funny because he's a former riser for me maybe 3 or 4 weeks ago. After week 2, he looked like, man. And, after 2 weeks, that guy that was playing quarterback for New England looked pretty good. Matt Jones had some pretty good stats after 2 weeks, but unfortunately it's all gone downhill, and it's gone downhill for Hunter Henry as well. He only had one reception on 5 targets the last 2 weeks. New England is so bad on offense. I mean, he's just like the other 2 I mentioned. You can't play him anymore.
Yeah, no, and it's frustrating, because you would think in that offense you'd see more 12 personnel, which you thought you would when they got Mike Gesicki. You thought that they would when they had Jonnu Smith, and he got brought over, and it just never really materialized. Interesting to talk about Jonnu Smith, because another Arthur Smith pass catcher that we haven't had as a riser, but he's been involved in that offense there in Atlanta too, and he's actually showing like he's the old guy that used to play with the Tennessee Titans, when he was a guy that would catch a ball and he'd give you something after the catch. But Hunter Henry, the talent's there, the size is there. He's athletic. He's big. It just hasn't been there. And again, Mac Jones is not playing well.
No, this is not a Hunter. He's not on here because of his abilities.
Yeah.
He's on here because that's a terrible situation right now.
Yeah, it sure is.
Coach, I truly appreciate you. Glad that you had a great time over the last couple of weeks. But us being home this weekend, although I will be in Bullhead City at a Mojave High School football game Friday night. Looking forward to it. It's one of my daughters is having a senior night. She's a varsity cheerleader, so looking forward to partake in that. But we will be here Sunday morning, 8:30 a.m. Pacific time, with start and sit and our picks against the spread, with also under or over and under. Can't wait for it, Coach. Appreciate you, and looking forward to Sunday.
Yeah, man. Hey, I appreciate everybody tuning in. I appreciate all the start and sit questions. This is the best time to bring those out and get a quick live response. So appreciate all you guys that hopped in the chat room and joined the show. Looking forward to
before you guys sign up, we really appreciate, subscribe to the Yards Per channel.
Yes.
Like this episode. For whatever reason, that stuff means stuff to YouTube. So thank you so much. Thank you, Alex, for always turning in. And we'll see you guys Sunday.